to know that they're wanted and needed. Otherwise, they spin out. I think that would be a bad idea for anybody. Now, the number two thing. I'm 57. The goddamn boomer thing. I was on Eric Stryker's. I was on the Red Ice Yuletide special. You guys can't go 3 minutes without mentioning boomers. This is why I think it's stupid. Number one, you're alienating an entire generation of potential allies. Number two, to think that these people knew what the hell was going to happen or even had much control over the government and they weren't working themselves to death like my dad was, is naive and stupid. Circumstances shape people. People don't, unless you're a bold individual, people don't shape circumstances. It's a dumb meme. Shut up about it. It's also, look at my article, Generational Astrology for Dummies. It's like, as dumb as astrology is, at least they keep it to a month. This whole boomer thing says that there's predictive value if you were born in the same 20 years, whether you're a millennial, it's dumb. And I think you've been played. I think the powers that be are dividing you according to generations. Just think about that. It's divisive. That's all I have to say. Merry Christmas.
I agree. Okay. No, I agree. I agree with you and I disagree. First off, I agree with you that the boomer thing has played itself out.
It's a mania. Yeah, it's like manic.
I agree with that.
They can't shut up about it.
I've even noticed among Gen Z that it's like they attack millennials and they attack Gen X, and it's just like, where does this end? It is massively divisive, and we need to get over it. So I would agree with you there, but I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I do think that there is, serious boomer analysis about the way that a historical experience informs your mindset.
My theory about this, because somebody in the super chat said that there is socialism in the UBI. It's boomer whites get socialism. That's a lie too. I think statistically, no one or very few people get back what they put into Social Security. My theory for why there's because when I'm a boomer. I was born in 1961. In the 70s, the left had this thing called ageism. That was a sin, just like race, because it's an innate characteristic. You have no control over what year you were born. Now, both the left and the right are attacking boomers and attacking older people. My theory for why this is happening, why it's being encouraged, the powers that be know that they don't have the money to pay for Social Security. So why not get the youngins pissed off, and they won't pay for it? And yet, you hear about with Day of the Pillow, I hope your black nurse suffocates you to death. You're talking about white people. If you go after the black boomers and shut the hell up otherwise. That's all I have to say.
I think you're being a little sensitive there, Jim.
Not sensitive. I don't care. I don't identify. I'm not defending a. This is what people get wrong. I'm not defending any generation. I don't feel a part of anything.
Right.
I think it's a dumb and like overly simplistic. But the main thing, divisive. You're alienating. If you're screaming at white boomers, they're not going to vote like you. They're not going to think. They're going to think.
I disagree because I'm a millennial technically, right? And millennials, they're dumb. I got to admit, most of us are these self-entitled, sheltered. There's a lot of things I can say about millennials. Why do you think that is? You think they decided to be that way? It's the circumstance. No, I just think you can make observations about the various generations that tend to be true. And by and large,
well, you would say that as a Libra. That's what it's like. It's
right on. I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying, by and large, people out there tend to be quite NPC, and you can kind of pick on whichever generation you'd like. And I think we got to just take it all in stride. That's how I look at it. But I see what you're saying. People are kind of overplaying the boomer meme, and it's getting cringe.
You can't, for 2 minutes, and it's all you think about. But I think about if you want to build a coalition, because this is a tiny coalition right now, don't alienate a whole generation.
I hear that.
We agree with that.
I want to say, number one, Jim has a great haircut and an equally good name. but what I would say is this. So the boomers get a lot of hell because a lot of the radical change happened as they were coming of age. And really, they were only coming of age. Really, it was the generation before that deserved a lot of blame. But above and beyond that, I say this all the time on these live streams. I'm like a band that's on tour. I play the same songs every night. Yeah. But the thing is, most people, and regardless of age, will go with the path of least resistance. So there are very few people on either side of the political spectrum that have inflexible beliefs and principles from which they will not retreat. And so obviously, I think the people on this live stream are part of that exception. But for the most part, everybody's going to go with whatever is trendy, fashionable, in vogue
Right.
at that moment. It's like the joke I always say. In the 1940s, every girl wanted to be with an SS officer. And so that will, when our ideas become profitable again, everybody will have always been a true believer. So the boomers
Right.
the amount of flack for being technically on the watch when a lot of this radical change began to occur.
Here,
So, our generation, Richard, you and I are essentially the same age. Our generation, for the most part, has been shit. I mean, what have we done? I mean, what we have done quite a bit, but overall, I mean, you can't say our generation has absolutely turned the tide. So I would probably agree with Jim. And in fact, I'm an older heart. And in fact, I'm an old guard even in this movement, having been on AM radio,
right.
in pro-white media for 14 years. I gravitate really to the older generation. I feel I have more in common with them than people my age or even younger.
Two other points. One, like I could see it having validity if in the 1960s people were told, well, we're going to replace you. We're going to demonize you. We're not going to allow you to speak for being white. No one was told that back then. So cut them a little slack. We were said, oh, we're just going to get along and we're going to drop rate. And it was sold as something entirely different. And the other thing is, because some of you 20-year-olds have 9 friends on Discord who think like you do you think your generation's any less liberal or not, maybe psychotically
it's
more?
More.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it just
Yeah.
I don't defend anybody but myself and people I care about. I can give a fuck about my generation. I just think the whole idea is fundamentally misguided and dumb. And
Well,
but again, if you don't like me, I don't care. Think about it in terms of building a coalition. You don't want to alienate 20 years worth of white people.
I agree. Let me just add briefly my conception of this. One thing, Jim, I think you're almost an honorary Gen Xer in your general attitude. But I mean that seriously, because, okay, in terms of the actual social change, the boomers did not, in terms of legislation, the boomers did not do it. The boomers were young people when Hart-Sellner was passed, when the civil rights movement was passed, when all sorts of things. That was actually a greatest gen type thing and silent gen. The boomers are kind of innocent. I think what's interesting about the boomers is that they are a self-righteous and kind of moralizing generation, because they felt like, and this is not, this is objective, it's not necessarily a criticism. They felt like they redeemed the past in a way by opening themselves up to new experiences, whether psychedelic or post-white or etc. And so they feel morally justified in where they are. So when they're young, they wanted socialism. When they're middle-aged, they wanted capitalism. And now that they're older age, they want socialism again. And they've, but they seem to have a certain blindness because of that moralism on both left and right. I mean, the boomers as a generation really can be blamed for, the political malfeasance that we see every day. I mean, they are the ones running for president since 1992. They have been holding office. They are in control of think tanks. They are in control of bureaucracies. So, at some point, one has to say, okay, what is it about this generation? How can we understand them? I would say my generation, I was born in 1978, and we feel like we were kept out of this. I think that we might very well not ever have a Gen X president. We might just flip from 70-year-olds to 30-year-olds. And we are the reality bites generation. We weren't born in that special period, that economic boom time that the boomers experienced. We were kind of thrown into this. No Gen Xer has made a consequential decision in terms of, say, diversity or immigration or et cetera. And so I think we have this negative consciousness. I think we are very similar. The Gen Xers are analogous to the lost generation, which actually gave birth to Ernest Hemingway, Fitzgerald, and also, I should add, gave birth to Mussolini and Hitler. So I think that kind of like the Gen Xers are, in a way, I do get along with them more. We're more radical. We have a bit of a nihilistic streak and negative consciousness in a good way. Millennials and Gen Z, I mean, I don't even know how to quite understand them. Millennials are also self-righteous, and I think in a way that Gen Xers aren't. Millennials think that, through, diversity in their Uber and and other, in using their MacBook to order up. I'm failing here to make a joke, but it's like this new technology combined with diversity and globalism, and everyone else is wrong, and they are a self-righteous generation as well. And so I think we can't understand generations and criticize them.
Okay, I'm assuming everyone here that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Could you be blamed for there not being a wall? People don't get what they vote for, and I think that's something that people. I mean, no one in the '60s, unless they were an isolated psychotic, voted for white dispossession. That's not what they were sold. As far as moralism goes, I am steadfastly against moralism. I'm actually working on a philosophical book. I think moralism is actually almost the opposite of acting ethically. All the good people I've ever known who treat you well, who return phone calls, who help you when you're in trouble, they never thump their chests about how good they are. So moralism, yeah, but I don't know if any generation's any more self-righteous. In the first answer me, I said, see, for us, mass murder is not the problem, self-righteousness is. So is moralism in any generation, yeah, it needs to be snapped out. But I
think boomers are more self-righteous than Gen Xers. Gen Xers, we're the reality bites. We kind of we've seen through it all. We're a cynical generation. And I think in the way that the boomers aren't.
How about we shift gears just a little bit here?